Welcome to Landlord Diaries, where we talk about midterm rentals and the opportunities behind them. We'll share landlord stories, talk about maximizing investment potential, and discuss how to live the very best landlord life. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Furnished Finder, the place for everything midterm rentals. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
Hi guys, we are back. This is Kelly Bailey, your podcast host from the Austin, Texas area.
And hey everyone, I'm Katie Lyon. I'm in the Denver area, and I'm also a proud member of the Furnished Finder team. Today we got to talk to Liz, and Liz was so interesting to talk to. She has a Victorian house in New York with 8 separate apartments. Not 8 rooms, which was my first understanding. 8 full-blown apartments. Separate entrances, independent kitchens, the works. So it was so cool to talk to her. She has a really interesting story about a house fire, and she is a seasoned landlord with good advice for anyone on their journey. So please remember that this podcast is brought to you by Furnished Finder, and on the Furnished Finder platform, there are no booking fees for traveler or property owner. So we're all looking to save $1 these days. So make sure you check it out when you're looking for your next place.
Hi Liz, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. We're so excited to hear your feedback. So let's jump into the first question. What made you want to get into the house hacking business, and why a Victorian home in Saratoga Springs, New York?
Well, it was a little more of a falling into it type situation than a deep desire to get into it situation. I moved into this house in order to not have to think of dates, I'll say about 4 or 5 years before it was purchased. And I was a tenant in one of the apartments. It was a great apartment, really, really cool apartment, right in downtown Saratoga. Super, just great location. I was already living in Saratoga. It was a few blocks away. And I lived in that apartment for, like I said, about 4 or 5 years, and just loved the building. It was great old Victorian. And the owner at the time was someone that, I really hit it off with. And eventually he decided to sell and suggested that maybe it might be me that wanted to buy it. And he was right.
That's awesome. So when you said you were a renter in this home, and then the opportunity came for you to buy it, can you describe the home to us, like the layout?
So here's the deal. I really liked how Liz helped me understand it in our intro call, which is it's one shared entry stairway. So imagine like a condo where you enter into a closed-in type hallway where it's air conditioned and lighted, where you're going into a safe environment to enter each individual unit. So her front door goes straight up a set of stairs and then has 5 doors at the top of those stairs, which are the 5 individual units on the inside, and then there's 3 with exterior door entrances on the outside. Am I recalling it correctly, Liz?
You're dead on. The only difference is that when you walk into that front door, one of the apartments is on that first level.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Great. So there's a first floor apartment, and then you walk up the stairs, and there are 4 doors at the top at the landing.
So this really is, everyone has their complete own unit, own bedroom, own bathroom, own kitchen, own private entrance. You may or may not even know who else is in the house.
Right.
Wow, that's impressive.
And they at this, they all have their own utilities as well.
Okay. How big is the house altogether?
It's it's a little over 4,000 square feet.
Okay, so how do you split them all up as far as long term, mid term, short term, and how did you come to the conclusion to do which one with which one, right?
So initially it was all long term.
Okay.
And that's how it has mostly been going since, majority of my time renting them has been long term. But in 2019, I was living in a small unit at the time, and I decided to go ahead and renovate it. Well, I renovated it. I liked living in it, and then I thought, I think I might move into a bigger unit and then rent this one out, which I did. Um, and I met a friend at this point, someone who works with me very regularly. He's just a great asset to helping me out. And he had done an Airbnb at his house, and we got talking about it, and he said, "Give it a shot." So I did, and then through networks of people that do renting, I found out about Furnished Finders, and that seemed like a really, really good. That seems like a really good division of my time and labor.
Right.
It gives me. It's just not so much turnover, and yet it's enough turnover that I have a really good read on how the apartments are being cared for, because I'm in there, now and again, and I really just tried it, and I've really enjoyed it. It's worked out really well so far. I'm very new in Furnished Finders. I just started it with an apartment that I renovated a bathroom in.
Okay.
After a long-term person left, and I decided to just put it right on Furnished Finders and got somebody. And I had already had a few reservations through another platform.
Right.
So I'm kind of doing those now, and then I'm going back to Furnished Finders in September.
Nice.
Roughly how much do you spend to furnish one of your units?
The first one, it was in the $4,000 range.
That's not bad at all.
Do you ever get complaints from your long terms that they don't know the people coming in for short term, or they don't mind it at all?
Knock on, whatever. I have not had any yet, and the units that I rent short term are not in the main house. So when you picture the main house, if you're looking at it and you go in that stairwell and you're in the original Victorian house, those are all long-term renters. The two that are short and midterm are down the driveway and down the sidewalk, and you enter from the side. So they don't access the main house. And
that's kind of a nice separation too.
Yeah.
So what have you come to learn as far as, like, I know we talked about the expense of furnishings, but when it comes to, like, end of the day profits and how it affects your bottom line as far as the long terms, mid terms, short terms, and how is that, like, how do you feel like that balance is going with the mix that you have?
Well, it's definitely a learning as I go. You know what I mean? And it changes based on the market.
Sure.
Too. So, it's a whole new. I mean, I am an artist and an art teacher, so it's a whole new realm. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not something I was really trained in. So I really do have to kind of watch things and see how the market is doing, see what pricing is like. I do a lot of, not all the time, but I do regular research into what other units are going for. I'm on Furnished Finders in my region looking at other units, to be in a fair market value. And both short-term and mid-term are going to bring in more than a long-term rental. But I'm paying utility costs for both of
Right.
those units. So right now, because we're in the situation where utilities are more expensive, we'll have to kind of see how it goes.
Right.
I will still be in the black. Like, it'll still be a profitable venture, but
Right.
we'll see how the costs and utilities affect.
Yeah, utilities are an interesting thing. I know, I mean, short term, obviously you can't have someone come in for an Airbnb and then charge them for electric, right? Midterm gets a little bit different. I know at Furnished Finder, the vast majority of our property owners do include utilities, but then we do have a handful where, especially if it's a very, I'm thinking like Arizona or places that get so hot, or that the fluctuation of utilities can be so high, even season to season, or just with different changes in pricing. We do have some landlords who adjust that and work it into the lease, as far as like, I will cover such and such much, or you're going to contribute this and I'll go this much. And I know Kelly and I both own properties in different cities and with different situations as well. And I think what's nice, just from at least myself as a landlord, is knowing that there's some options, right? Like, okay, because if you do find yourself like, okay, hey, I'm not clearing quite as much as I would like, you have some options. You can raise the price, or you can get creative with the agreement of the utilities, right? So I think that's interesting. I know, with short-term rentals, there's a lot more expectations, right? Like, if my family rented an Airbnb for vacation and someone tried to charge me for electric, I would be like, I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. So yeah, I mean, always as landlords, especially in this market, it's so nice to have that control. And I think, yeah, that's important. So that's really interesting to hear. And yeah, hopefully it keeps going well. What kind, do you mind sharing what kind of occupation, or do you know about your midterm renter, like why they are renting? Is it a travel nurse? Is it someone who's relocating?
Well, it's interesting. So I have kind of just come into this, and I have had a lot of interest from traveling nurses. I think the person that'll be looking tomorrow is a traveling nurse. But the first person that came in was not. It's actually a coach for a summer sport, connected with the college. So it was a person that was, hired by the college to come in and coach a summer sport. And that was kind of, I was not expecting that,
Right.
And I mean, it's fine. It worked out great. But, it just kind of showed me like, oh, this can really be a multitude of people that are looking at it.
It's amazing the different people who are looking for a midterm rental that I had not even thought of, like he's like a coach going to I would have never thought of that. I would have never in a million years thought of that.
Yeah, and
it makes sense if it's a college for relocating.
It totally makes sense. It's just, it's amazing how we don't think of that stuff. So
well, it's such so to just fill that picture out a little more, this guy lives in another town about maybe 4 hours away.
Oh wow! Okay.
Considering relocating, has a job that he works remotely. So it didn't matter where he lives based on his job, but this coaching situation brought him into this town. And I don't know what he'll end up deciding, but he was 3 months with me, and then now he'll be 3 months with another Furnished Finders on the other side of town. And
fun.
Yeah. So I mean, who knows? He might relocate, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. We had one round of guests that stayed at two of our properties. They stayed at one for a couple months and then thought they'd liked South Austin and stayed in South Austin and realized they really liked North Austin better. And by the time they were coming back this direction, we had a different property available that lined up with their date. So it was fun. They stayed in 2 of our different
That's
properties.
so
That's cool.
cool.
It was. They were a really sweet family from Canada, so we felt very blessed to get to know them for the time that they are here. And right now they're at a lake house, so they're having a ton of fun.
That's
But
awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about getting to know that whatever city or town you're considering staying in before you plant your roots, because that
Right.
never used to be an option, and you kind of like gauge what you can, but
Right.
to get to know the neighborhoods, the different areas, the schools, that takes some time. You can't do that in a day. So,
Right.
yeah,
Dave-
it's
Dave and
interesting.
I are actually considering. Dave likes deals. That's my husband, and so he went skiing last year, and was like, "Wow, lift tickets are so expensive." And so then, you get those epic passes. So he's like, I really think I should do an epic pass this year. And I saw his wheels turning, and it was like he was considering doing an epic pass for himself, which to me says 3 guys trips alone. And so I
Right.
said, I said, I like your thinking. We don't go very often, so it's not likely that we'll use it very much. But if you really want to do it, let's do it. Let's commit to it and buy 2, not 1. So that's what he did. He bought 2. And so we're talking about renting a place on Furnished Finder for a month in whatever ski town we pick
Oh,
from
how
that area.
fun.
Yes, and
It's
bringing our
great.
dog so she can enjoy it as well. So we're going to start looking soon and see what's available. But it's always so neat why people travel. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And to be in somebody's place that's actually been considered,
Mhm.
I don't know, the hotel thing is just a whole, it's just doesn't have any, it just doesn't have any gravitas. You know what I mean? I don't know how
Right.
else to say it. I mean, you kind of go and it's
Mhm.
just kind of
And you like don't
clinical.
touch.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, some people just love that. They love to travel that way, and it's kind of, there's a
Mhm.
predictability about it.
I think
Or,
there's like a time and a place for hotels, right? Like they're
sure.
really
Uh-huh.
great if you're only going for a short stay, or sometimes my husband and I like we'll travel and we're like, listen, I just don't want to think about anything. I don't want to do any communication with a host or a landlord or anything. Like just book it and be done. And there's a time for that, right? But
Mhm.
the vast majority of the time now, like we're interested in, like you said, like something a little bit more personal, sometime that I don't know, it just feels like you're really getting the full sense of the trip, not
Mhm.
Yeah, like
just,
living
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah,
When I think of hotels, I think of price. It's got to be more
yeah,
expensive than a home to
yeah.
rent a lot of times. So
Hmm.
just a reminder that Furnished Finder does have hotel partners. So if you're a traveler and you're looking to stay somewhere, the houses are great. But if you don't find one that fits your needs, we also have hotels that are at a
Mhm.
discounted rate that have been negotiated that help kind of offset that cost a little bit that you can
Right.
enjoy as well.
Hmm.
Y'all want to jump on to the next question?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I want to bring it back personal. We talked about the college a little bit. You also mentioned that Saratoga Springs has a cute downtown area. So why don't, if we have travelers listening or landlords that are looking for a new, place to invest, why don't you tell us about downtown Saratoga Springs and what you teach at the college and what your art is like?
All right. Well, first of all, I don't teach at the college anymore. I did briefly, but I do
Okay.
teach at this point. I do teach high school ceramics, and
Okay.
so I'm not right at the college. And I actually travel. I actually commute to work, so I have a little bit of a trip to work. So I've looked at furnished finders in the town I work in,
Oh,
and
how cool.
I
Interesting.
probably will be going in a week or so to look at one over that way. I'm just over the border of Vermont teaching.
That's
So,
awesome.
you know, once you learn about these things, you get to not just, kind of use them on both ends, like
Right.
you
You
said.
realize all the
Uh-huh.
options that there
Yeah.
are. That's so
Um,
cool.
but the town it's really great. It's changed a ton. It's an old historic town, 1800s Victorian. It was, it's called Saratoga Springs because there are a ton of springs, and it's
Hot
also
or cold?
Cold, not like the not like the hot springs and stuff in Colorado. But,
oh man, I'm a sucker for the hot springs.
Yeah. No, I love those too. But this is more of the drinking type, like the spring water for healing type. So that was kind of the draw, the allure was the tagline for the city is health, history, and horses. It has the oldest horse racing track in the country.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful track. And then also it's also called Spa City because of the spas, and there are still the Roosevelt baths that you can go and get it's like a sparkling mineral bath. It's just natural. It's naturally effervescent. So you kind of float in the tub. It's really weird. But it's great. And it's just
amazing.
It is. And, there's a old Victorian pool in the state park, which is just really, really great. It's all freshwater, spring fed, and a little chilly, which is nice on a hot day. And it's a very vibrant downtown. In the time that I've lived in the town, it's really grown exponentially. I mean, it really is just it's a little it's a lot for for people who have lived here for a long time. It's a lot. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of business, and the city grows. It's a very small city, but it is actually considered a city. It just grows by leaps and bounds for July and August during the track season.
Okay.
And I guess initially, we get the New York City. I mean, really, we're the trains from New York City to Saratoga come up for the spa, for healing, for the racetrack, and that's sort of its brief history.
Katie and I have another place to add to our list.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah, you should come. Definitely come visit.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So it sounds like it's definitely a town with some history, and I'm assuming your house is not the only house that is older. How has that impacted your investment, and how has maintenance and upkeep been? Because I know personally, and I think this is very common in investors and property owners, anything pre-1980 gives me tremors.
With good reason.
Right. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's not that anything can't happen to any house of any age, but there's something about not really knowing what's behind those walls and not knowing what's the next, what's going to happen. So tell us how that's been. Have you encountered anything that, taken a big hit, or do you do anything kind of preventatively, or what's that like?
Well, that's the big, that's the big deal, right?
Right.
About a house like mine, because so I'm in the historic district. I'm right in the historic district.
Okay.
And what that means in a town like this one is that it matters.
Right.
So in a historic district, there's a design review commission for the whole city, but in a historic district, there are very, very strict guidelines for keeping it in, keeping it lined up with what was there. So my story about that is that I actually did have a really large house fire in 2005.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so that was an electrical issue that was in it was a power strip. It wasn't an electrical issue. It was a very old power strip. And in one of the apartments. And so that was where I actually got my education in what happens, how things work in a historical district, how things work with an old house. And it was absolutely amazing to learn. It was also completely overwhelming, but it was amazing. I worked, with an amazing contractor who'd been working in the city for many years, and I had a partner at the time. So having the division of labor and really, that was amazingly helpful. That is not something that anybody wants to go through.
Right.
You would not. It's very much not advisable to renovate your house through fire. Like, it's not a good idea.
This is less than ideal.
No, very, 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 very much less than ideal. If we hadn't gotten the guy that we did to work with, it might have just been a walkaway situation, because he really knew what he was doing, every bit. So there were all sorts of things that I learned. There was if you look if you're into horse racing, and you look up the horse named Man of War, that's a famous racehorse, and there was literally a racing ticket in the wall, behind the wallboard, for Man of War, for a race that horse did in Saratoga.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, just wild stuff, really wild. So there are a lot of things, maintenance and upkeep, and really kind of making sure that, the way that went was that we worked 100% with the city.
Okay.
We followed every code, and we followed all the recommendations from the Design Review Commission. And that is the way that I see that's best to do it.
Right.
That we weren't trying to kind of get around it or skirt it or go under it, or we just said, what do we need to do? How do we do it? And then that's the way we'll do it. Not everybody does that.
Right.
Some people kind of say, well, there are, kind of get around this, get around that. And that does, I think, tend to make things harder. That's what I've seen.
Good advice. I'm sure it does make things harder. I think you bring up a very good point, and I'm sorry you had to go through the fire. And that at that point, I think you had 8 long-term renters that went through the fire as well. So, did you feel like you had the right insurance in place, and that your insurance really covered you well? And what about your tenants as well?
Yeah, we really did have the right insurance in place, and that was really because of the person that we had purchased it from.
That's good.
That was just, really foresight on his part, and it was really, really important. It's really important to have the right insurance on your property.
Yeah.
And
it's also, I think that shows the power of a broker, right? Because I know this, Kelly and I both just recently closed on properties, and when I was going through ours, the insurance came in expensive, a lot more than we had modeled for. And there was someone in the mortgage company recommended a second quote from a different company, got that quote, came in cheaper, went back to the first one to show him, and he was like, yeah, that's because this isn't going to cover you, if A, B, or C happens, and this isn't valid in this state, and this is, this is actually not going to apply. And I'm like, okay, like, that all makes sense. And it's something that I think I did not appreciate for a long time, is having an insurance broker who really understands the ins and outs of not only the policy, but the property and the location, because there's different risks and hazards of different properties, different locations, and to have someone who's aware of that and educated is, oh my gosh, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, I think sometimes there are so many things that we don't know that we don't know.
Right.
And that's not really a great area to say, well, I didn't know.
Right.
Really, it's a really important part of it. And I'm glad that it was well.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
How about the renters? Did you require renters insurance, or how were they covered through the experience?
Many of them did not have coverage, and that changed my lease.
Mm.
So after that incident, I require it. Now, I can't,
Okay.
I mean, basically, it's in the lease that the tenant is responsible for renter's insurance.
Right.
And I don't have them send me the proof of it, but that's not a bad idea either, though. You know,
Right.
that's not a bad idea, and I'm just thinking of it right this second. But I do have them sign off on that they see that I'm requiring it.
So did your renters lose everything because they didn't have renters insurance, or did your insurance still cover them for things?
So the main unit that lost everything was mine.
Okay.
Because I was above it.
Mm.
And the unit where the power strip was, and it was just literally right under the unit that we were living in. So that unit and then the one above it was mine, and that was the lose everything.
Wow.
Most of the other units, people were able to get their stuff. It just, there wasn't as much damage in any of the other units. So there was some water damage below it, and there was smoke damage, of course.
Right.
But and the other thing is that one of the things that I like, so the other thing that is different about my property than other investors is I live here.
Right.
This is my property. I mean, this is my home.
Right.
So, it's kind of like a family in a way, and I don't mean it's in a family like it's a family like we are open door policy. It's not at all. But I care about my tenants a lot, and I think they know it.
Right.
I mean, we say hello every day. We talk. And if there's a problem, I want to know right away. And so there actually ended up being a benefit. There was a benefit for the tenants in town. A couple bands played, and
that's awesome.
So the town, really, everybody came out, and they really got everything back based on that.
That's fantastic.
That's great. Okay, well, let's move on to the next question. If everybody's good, any last comments from that section?
No, I think we're good.
I will add that one thing about that is that our insurance did cover their displacement.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah. Wow. So I don't want to. There were elements of the building insurance that did actually cover the tenants.
Right.
So it wasn't like, okay, you're on your own and you have to. Somebody has to throw you a benefit to get any.
Right.
But it helped to offset. Their losses of things.
Right.
With that being said, I do have two guests right now. So we have 5 houses, and two of them, this is my first round of insurance guests, and both of them had fires in their homes, like you're saying, were displaced and needed a new place to live. So both of them were in hotels for a while, and then connected. Then the relocation services found my properties on Furnished Finder and connected me with them, and through the approval process. But at the end of the day, the renters have to say, yes, I want to live in this home. If not, they keep looking for other properties.
Right.
But it's incredible what they can do. They were renters, one of them, and it, covered a pretty nice monthly cost in a nice home for them. And then they also, it was one we had this is going on right now, so it's one we had just closed on. And so it was, she called and said, hey, do you have this property available? I was like, this one's not, but we have another property that we just closed on that is available. And she said, is it furnished? Is it not furnished? I was like, well, I can furnish it. That would take a couple weeks. Or we can do it unfurnished. She said, don't worry about it. We can have furniture and all the silverware, glasses, starter kit, everything in, washer, dryer, everything in 4 days.
Wow.
I was so impressed. And that's the insurance covering the renters that were going through a fire. So, and
So
we've talked. Mhm.
Oh, sorry. So that was the renter's insurance that they had gotten.
I don't know if it's their insurance or the owner's insurance. I didn't dig deeper into that, but whoever's insurance it was, they were well covered. And so now they're going to be in our home for 6 months with a furniture partner called Court, which Katie and I have talked to other landlords about Court. And so it was really cool to be on the receiving end to see Court come in and transform a place in 4 days. Well, they transform it in 4 hours, but
all the coordination.
Right. So that was super special. Okay. Well,
That's
great
cool.
conversation. Let's jump into landlord logistics. How does mail work with one address and 8 units? Did you have to change the mailboxes or you just divvy it up?
No, it literally is the same address with apartment number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
Okay.
So
and
it's basically
was that set up before you bought it or you had to put that together?
Yeah, that was already up. So when I lived when I moved in, I lived in number 8. And so yeah, it was already set up. And it's, the guy who was here for 3 months, he just had his mail delivered here, and he changed it out. And people that are in the mid-range renters, they obviously also get access to the mailbox. I do with the short range. I do stipulate that there can't be mail delivered unless they check with me.
Okay.
It just for a whole bunch of different reasons.
Right.
I didn't know that when I started, and one of my early people that rented short term, they were leaving. They were students, and they rented for like maybe 5 days before their flight out of the country to go back home. And there were a bunch. They had all these packages delivered, and I wasn't home one day, the day they were leaving, and they were, they couldn't get into the main building because they don't have access to it. And so that, they were knocking on, you know what I mean? It was just one of those things like, okay, no mail. Just if you want to get mail, just contact me and we'll set up
it out.
In CO to me, and that way I'll get it to you.
So how do you handle the books, the leases, the accounting, all of that with 8 properties, right? I mean, I can imagine that is a lot.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been doing it for a while, so I think it's, I have a system. I am not an accountant, and I'm not a bookkeeper. I do have a bookkeeper that helps me. I don't really use them that much because I kind of have a system. I mean, really, my record keeping system is very, very, very basic, and I learned it from a person who had a business, a small business, and it's like so archaic. It really is. It's.
I want to hear it. I need a better system.
Well, I don't think you're going to use it.
That's okay.
I can tell you this: it's not an app. It's literally just I staple receipts onto a piece of paper. I label them. I just save everything. It's a binder. Every year is a separate binder, and the leases from last year, the people that renew, they get turned right into this year. They get transferred from the year before into the new binder. Everything that comes through in this year gets stored and saved in that binder. I do, like I said, I have a bookkeeper. basically, I think, he probably helps me out maybe 3 or 4 times a year, kind of quarterly, to
Okay.
just make sure that
Mhm.
we're all up and
Right.
he'll run a profit and loss. I mean, I can run the profit and loss too.
Right.
Obviously
Mhm.
that is on QuickBooks or whatever it is that I use. I think it's
Right.
QuickBooks. And
So
it's
do you take those receipts eventually and enter them into QuickBooks, or what do you do with
yeah,
those receipts?
they all go into
QuickBooks.
yep, yep. And
Okay.
so he really helps me on that. I do believe I could do it on my own. It's pretty simple if you just keep up on it. But
Right. That's the challenge,
because
is keeping up on it.
it is, and because I have another full-time job that I do,
Yeah.
um, my time is, I can only do, I only have so many hands, Um,
Right.
Right.
so that's really how it's done. I do have an accountant that does, taxes and stuff. And I don't know, it seems to go pretty well.
Good. Sometimes the classic solution to go to QuickBooks is all you need.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I think, I've tried um, all sorts of different things over the years. I've tried all
Right.
these different apps like, Mint and, all these different ones that you can find out about if you read anything. You can get like
Mhm.
5 million different options of things to do. But
Mhm.
really, it's just taking care of it in the moment, one thing at a time.
Right.
And I did
Good.
eventually,
Mhm.
like, I did actually transition a lot of things to automatic um, payment just
Mm-hmm.
because, I just really wanted to make sure that nothing got forgotten by me,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Um,
Definitely.
and that was a really good move. It just helps a lot. And then it's just a matter of checking that everything's on the level, that something didn't get taken out that should have been.
Right.
Good. All right, we've got about probably 5 minutes left, so let's move over to our last section, Furnish Finder favorites. And I really liked what you said in our intro call, and we'll see if it's still the same or different. But you said there's a big need for Furnish Finder type housing in your area. So why is that?
Well, we have a lot of hospitals in this area.
Mm.
We have a lot of transitional folks. We have a lot of people that are coming up from New York, and in COVID. So we've had 2 major influxes in Saratoga. One was after 9/11, and the other one was during
Okay.
COVID. So we've had a major, major influx, and people that are kind of transitional and just needing places to stay. But I mean, the whole work world has completely changed,
Right.
and so
Absolutely. People can
it's a
work anywhere.
yes, and it's a desirable place to be. I had a gal stay for quite a while. It was mid range stay.
Mhm.
Who came in from England. She'd gotten a engineering position here in one of the large um, plants that we have. We have a
Okay.
bunch of microchip stuff going on
So
in this
there's
area.
demand from a lot of different areas. There's people
Yeah.
relocating, there's
Yes.
long-term tourists, if you will, there's medical, there's, you know,
Yep.
machining or whatever you want to call it. That's awesome. There's not a lot of towns that have kind of that functional appeal and demand and the tourist demand. So
Mhm.
that sounds pretty unique. That sounds really interesting. So, okay, well, I think our last question today, and thing that we really want to touch on, is what are your favorite Furnish Finder or Key Check features that you use so far? I know you said that you're just getting started and you're looking forward to more and more midterm rentals, but even this far into your journey, what are you finding on those 2 sites that's really helping make things a little bit easier for you?
Well, the thing even when Kelly and I had talked initially, the thing that really, really, I think is impressive, and really helpful, and dug into it to a degree, but I want to dig in a little more, is the tracking, really the tracking of, you know, it's very unique as far as what I'm familiar with, where you really, there's a lot of data entry.
Right.
If you go into the Furnished Finder site, there's a lot of areas for data entry of
Right.
time spent, like length of stay, contact information for your renters, names. I mean, it's just, there's a whole I mean, they're not even going to come to me right now because I'm trying to think of them, but there's a lot of
expenses.
Yes, right, exactly. And I really, that is really helpful to have that all in one place.
Good.
So as I move more into Furnished Finders, that stuff I can kind of track my income through just the unit. Like if I decide to do another one sometime, I can kind of track the income. Maybe I'll change, one into more of a midterm. And I find that that's when I can get everything into one spot.
Right.
Pretty valuable.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and the tenant tracking under your dashboard as a landlord, that's not limited to your Furnished Finder guests either. It's like you could use it for any of your long-term, mid-term, or short-term guests, which is nice. I had a similar need that I really need to be more consistent on filling mine out, because every time I need to find out what day a lease started, I always go to my Law Depot account and look at my saved leases. Because if I'm on the go, I don't have to have my computer with me. I can just log into Law Depot and it's right there. Now, if I'm at home, then I could just pull it up on my computer, or sometimes Dave creates the leases. So I've got some on mine, he's got some on his, but everything's stored under Law Depot, which is a huge benefit. And same thing for tenant tracking. I realized my end dates, I don't track those currently because they're through text. It's like a lot of our guests are either remodels or they're moving to the area and don't know what day, they don't know what area of town they want to live in or how long they want to stay. Or like these insurance claims, they don't know when the remodeling project's going to be finished. So it's like all of that is in a text message, which is deleted after not very long. So tenant tracking is such a great tool for that. So good reminder. Any last things we want to discuss?
That I just want to say that's even more good info for me, because I got to look at it even, like I said, more deeply.
Very it's almost like a miniature property management software.
Yes.
Yep. Which is sometimes, like we've been saying, sometimes you don't need the full-blown, expensive, complicated software. Sometimes you just need a simple solution.
Yeah, I think the more complex the software is, the harder it is to use.
Right. I agree.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it was so good getting to know you and to hear your house sounds so interesting, and as does the town. Kelly was right. It is on my bucket list now, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. So it was such a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for taking time out of your day.
It was my pleasure.
Definitely.
I'm happy to do it. I just I don't know. I love this. I love doing this. I love renting. I love the rental business. I like providing the space for people. I like it when people feel that they can call this home, even if it's for a short amount of time.
Right.
And feel like they're well taken care of. And
love it.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. It really is.
It is.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. What I love most about our show is it's just landlord stories and how we can learn from each other. So we really appreciate everything you shared today. I have some thoughts, especially from the fire conversation. Like that's some things I'm going to take to heart and re-listen to, and figure out, hey, am I set up for success? So such great information that we can all learn from each other. So if you are liking our show, just don't forget to subscribe and hit like on this specific episode. And until next time, thank you for your time, Liz. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.